By 7 in the morning, the excavator had already been down 4 hours. Its tracks, each one nearly 5 feet wide, had vanished below the waterline of a saturated Montana field. 53 tons of Komatsu steel worth $500,000 going nowhere. 3 recovery crews had already tried. 2 heavy-duty winch trucks, a bulldozer borrowed from a highway contractor 40 miles east. The suction holding those tracks was measured not in pounds but in tons, and the mud refused to negotiate. Yet someone made a phone call that changed the arithmetic of the situation entirely. The machine they summoned weighed 135,000 pounds when fully ballasted, ran on 1,100 horsepower, and had never once failed to move what it was hooked to. It was coming from Big Sandy. If you want to see how a single tractor ended up doing what 3 recovery crews could not, here is what I ask. See that subscribe button? That is our exchange. Your way of saying this story reached you. Hit subscribe if it resonated, drop a like if it moved you, and tell us in the comments what you know about the Big Bud 16V747. It helps us share more stories like this. Back to Big Sandy, Montana, and the machine that started it all. But to understand how this happened, we have to go back to 1977, to a machine shop in Havre, Montana, where a man named Ron Harmon was building something that had never existed before. He called it the Big Bud 16V747. Harmon and his crew at the Northern Manufacturing Company were not building a production tractor. They were building one machine, a single, unrepeatable commission, for 2 cotton farmers in California. Elmer and Melvin Rossi needed something capable of deep-ripping 20,000 acres of Bakersfield hardpan. The machine Wilbur Hensler designed for this task cost $300,000 to build. Its engine was a Detroit diesel 16V92T, 16 cylinders, 2-cycle, 1,472 cubic inches of displacement, up with dual turbochargers and intercoolers. At delivery in January 1978, it produced 760 horsepower. The tractor measured 27 feet long and 14 feet to the top of the cab. Its 8 custom tires, each one 8 feet in diameter and 40 inches wide, were manufactured specifically for this machine by the United Tire Company of Canada. Nothing off a standard shelf would fit. The powertrain used a torque converter mated to a full power-shift transmission with 6 forward speeds. The fuel tank held 850 gallons. Yet when it rolled out of the Havre shop for the first time, it was painted white with a black hood top and black exhaust stacks. Nothing like it existed on Earth. Before working a day of California cotton ground, the 747 was exhibited at the California Farm Equipment Show in Tulare in February 1978. Farmers walked around it in silence. Some took measurements with tape. One engineer from a competing manufacturer looked at the fuel tank and walked away without saying a word. The Rossi brothers ran the 747 across their Bakersfield operation for 11 years. Deep-ripping cotton ground is one of the most demanding tasks in American agriculture. Breaking hardpan clay at 18 to 24 inches of depth, tine loads punishing anything with a weak frame. The Big Bud never bent. After California, the machine passed to Willowbrook Farms in Indialantic, Florida, where it continued deep-ripping vegetable ground. Then it fell quiet, parked, unused, its diesel stacks cold, and its 850-gallon tank dry. The world's largest farm tractor sat forgotten in a Florida field. In 1997, Robert and Randy Williams of Big Sandy, Montana, heard the machine was available. Big Sandy sits roughly 60 miles from Havre, where the 747 had been born 20 years earlier. The brothers made the purchase, loaded the tractor onto a flatbed, and brought it home. The Williams brothers rebuilt the 747 through the winter of 1997 and 1998. They increased the power output to 900 horsepower and repainted the machine entirely white with chrome exhaust stacks. The tractor that had once deep-ripped California cotton was now going to till the Montana plains. The Big Bud went to work on the Williams brothers' Chouteau County farm pulling an 80-foot cultivator. At speeds up to 8 miles per hour, it covered 1.3 acres every single minute. 60 to 70 acres per hour. At that pace, the machine wasn't farming. It was consuming geography. In 2011, the Williams brothers pushed the engine further. New fuel injectors brought the Detroit diesel 16V92T to 1,100 horsepower, nearly 45% above the original factory rating of 760. The machine built for California hardpan was now pulling harder than anyone in Havre had designed it to. Now return to that waterlogged field in Chouteau County. The year is 2020. The Big Bud had recently returned to farm work after a decade of museum display, fitted with new Goodyear LSW 1400/30R46 tires, slightly shorter than the originals but wider than a man is tall. Once the ground it was about to enter was not farmland. It was a construction staging area after 3 weeks of rain. The Excavator, a Komatsu PC490 weighing approximately 107,000 pounds with a new purchase price around $500,000, had moved into the site to clear drainage channels following a pipeline survey. The operator, a veteran of 12 years on tracked equipment, felt the ground shift under the machine at 6:22 in the morning. He stopped immediately. Too late. As the mud was deep and saturated clay, the most adhesive natural material a tracked machine can encounter. As the Komatsu's 107,000 pounds settled, the vacuum seal forming beneath both track assemblies began to exceed the machine's own drive capacity. Running the tracks only pushed it deeper. The first recovery attempt used 2 heavy-duty winch trucks, combined rated pull of approximately 80,000 pounds, anchored to a concrete barrier 300 feet away. The chains went taut. The excavator did not move. One anchor chain snapped clean. The Komatsu stayed exactly where it was. The site foreman called in a borrowed bulldozer, a Caterpillar D6 tracked dozer from a highway maintenance contractor in Chouteau County. It ran its blade under the Komatsu's arm and pushed from the side. The dozer lost traction at 40% throttle. Both machines were now in trouble. By noon of the first day, the site manager contacted the Williams brothers in Big Sandy. Robert Williams listened to the description of the situation. He did not ask many questions. Yet he asked one, "How deep are the tracks?" The answer was 4 feet. He said he would be there by morning. Moving the Big Bud 16V747 is not a casual undertaking. At 95,000 pounds in shipping configuration and 27 feet of frame length, it requires a permitted oversized load convoy. The Williams brothers had done it before. They began the loading process that same evening under floodlights. The convoy carrying the Big Bud left Big Sandy before sunrise. Yes, it covered the distance across Chouteau County in just over 2 hours. When the truck crested the hill above the site, the recovery crews below stopped working and watched. Some of them had never seen the machine before. None of them had seen anything like it. The Big Bud was offloaded and driven to a dry gravel pad 400 feet from the mired Komatsu. Robert Williams walked the ground between them on foot, feeling the soil give with each step, mapping the suction zones. He identified the anchor points. He chose the chain routing himself. At the recovery chain, a length of 1.5-inch grade 100 alloy chain with a working load rating exceeding 47,000 pounds per leg, was run from the Big Bud's drawbar across 180 feet of firmer soil and connected to the Komatsu's front undercarriage frame. 2 additional anchor legs secured the Komatsu from rolling sideways. The rigging took 45 minutes. Robert Williams climbed the steps into the Big Bud's cab, a wide, air-conditioned space fitted with a swivel bucket seat, AM/FM radio, and an 8-track stereo system installed at the factory in 1977. He sat down, set the transmission to first range, and let the engine idle up from cold. The Detroit diesel 16V92T idled at a distinctive 2-stroke bark, 16 cylinders firing in alternating pairs. The sound felt as much in the chest as heard through the ears. At idle, it consumed diesel at a rate most tractors match only at full throttle. That was before it loaded up. Williams eased the transmission into gear. At the Big Bud's 135,000 pounds of ballasted weight pressed down against the gravel pad. 67 tons finding their purchase. 8 tires, each one pressing against the dry ground. The chain went from slack to taut in less than 2 seconds. Then it went rigid. The Komatsu did not move. Not at first. The 16 V747 held the pull steady. No surge, no slack. Just sustained drawbar load pressing against 107,000 pounds of machine held by vacuum-sealed clay. Williams did not increase throttle. He let the chain tension work on the suction alone. 4 minutes and 20 seconds. That is how long the chains sat under static tension before the mud released. Not all at once. First, the right track broke free with a sound described by the workers present as a rifle shot, then a long, sucking exhale as the clay let go of the left. The excavator moved 18 inches. Williams felt the load shift in the drawbar and increased throttle by 15%. The Big Bud's tires dug into the gravel pad. The Detroit Diesel's exhaust stacks threw black. The Komatsu came forward another 3 feet, and then another. The clay was losing its grip in sections, like a seal peeling off a jar. It took 11 minutes from the moment the chain first went taut to the moment the excavator's tracks were fully clear of the suction zone. 11 minutes. Every other recovery attempt across the previous 14 hours had produced 0 movement. The Big Bud produced 47 feet of horizontal travel. The site manager walked over to Robert Williams after the excavator was on firm ground. He shook his hand and asked what he owed. Williams reportedly said the number he had in mind. The site manager did not argue. He wrote the check without saying anything further, and later described the Big Bud as the most expensive cheap solution he had ever hired. What made the Big Bud capable of this recovery was not raw horsepower alone. It was weight and traction applied as a controlled system. At 135,000 pounds pressing 8 tires into dry gravel, that is 16,875 pounds per tire of vertical load, each one gripping rather than spinning, each one pulling, not churning. Engineering context. The Big Bud's Detroit Diesel, 16 Fe92T, produces peak torque of approximately 2,500 pound-feet at 1,200 revolutions per minute. That torque runs through a 6-speed power-shift transmission and a torque converter, which multiplies starting torque above mechanical ratio at low speed. In a sustained static pull, this combination is genuinely different from anything a wheeled machine can produce. The Big Bud's original design brief, written by Wilbur Hensler for the Rossi brothers' deep ripping operation, required sustained drawbar pull in excess of 60,000 pounds. That requirement shaped every component: the torque converter ratio, the final drive reduction, the ballasted weight specification. Everything built into that machine was built to pull without stopping. There is a detail about the Big Bud's tire configuration that matters in a recovery context. The dual rear tire setup spreads the machine's footprint across a surface area of approximately 200 square feet when fully ballasted. On a dry gravel pad rated for construction equipment, that footprint distributes load well below the bearing capacity of the surface. The machine does not sink. The excavator does. After the recovery, the Komatsu was inspected in place before being moved. The hydraulic cylinders were checked for seal damage. The swing ring was rotated through full travel. The boom was cycled under light load. Now everything functional. 53 tons pulled 4 feet clear of saturated clay, and the machine came out without a bent frame or a burst seal. The site insurance company sent an adjuster to review the recovery. The adjuster's report noted the excavator had been in the saturated zone for 18 hours and 40 minutes. The suction force, estimated based on track dimensions and clay type, was calculated to have required a sustained drawbar pull of approximately 68,000 to 75,000 pounds to break. The Big Bud's rated drawbar output significantly exceeded that figure. The Williams brothers returned the Big Bud to their farm in Chouteau County by mid-afternoon. The tractor that had just pulled a $500,000 machine from a clay trap was washed down at the fuel yard, checked for chain wear on the drawbar hitch, and parked beside the grain bins. No ceremony. It was just work. This story is not unique in the Big Bud's operational history. During its 11 years on the Rossi brothers' cotton farm, the 747 was occasionally called upon to recover other equipment that had bogged in the irrigated hardpan. The Rossi brothers did not keep a second recovery machine on the property. They did not need one. The Northern Manufacturing Company of Havre built the Big Bud 16547 as a one-off commission, but the broader Big Bud line included several hundred production tractors in various series, the 400 horsepower 400/30, the 525 horsepower 525/50, all using off-the-shelf truck engines, truck transmissions, and heavy-duty truck axles to reduce cost and simplify parts supply. The 747 was the apex. The others did the daily work. The legacy of the Big Bud 16547 extends past its own operational record. It demonstrated that a farm tractor could be built at a scale that genuinely competed with tracked construction equipment in sustained pull situations. That design philosophy, maximum weight, maximum drawbar torque, though minimum wheel speed, has influenced articulated four-wheel drive engineering for 5 decades. In July 2009, the United Tire Company of Canada, sole source of the 747's custom 8-foot tires, had been bankrupt for years, and the original tires were worn past safe limits. The Williams brothers retired the Big Bud from regular farm work and sent it to Heartland Acres in Independence, Iowa, then later to the Heartland Museum in Clarion, Iowa. It became a display piece. For a time. In September 2020, Goodyear released the LSW 1400/30R46, a low sidewall agricultural tire large enough to replace the 747's original 8-foot units, albeit approximately 1 foot shorter in diameter. The Williams brothers ordered new rims and a new set of 8 tires. The Big Bud returned to Big Sandy. It went back to work. The Williams brothers also ran a second machine on their Montana farm, a restored Big Bud Series 4440 rebuilt with a Detroit Series 60 engine, producing approximately 550 horsepower, fitted with dual LSW 1000/45R32 tires, and used to pull an 86-foot air drill across the rolling hills of Chouteau County. The 747 was not the only giant on the property. It was just the largest. The Big Bud 16V747 is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's largest farm tractor. It is a one-of-a-kind machine, the only 747 ever built. There will never be another. The Northern Manufacturing Company closed. The United Tire Company of Canada closed. The Rossi brothers' cotton operation changed hands. But the machine itself continues to exist, continues to run, and, on the right day, on the right ground, continues to pull. Engineers who have studied the 16V747's design consistently note one thing. The machine was overbuilt for its original assignment. It was built with margins that the Rossi brothers' cotton ground never fully tested. Those margins are precisely why it was still pulling. At 1,100 horsepower, on new tires, on a Montana plain, more than 40 years after it left Ron Harmon's shop in Havre. The Big Bud 747 sits in Big Sandy, Montana, 60 miles from where it was born. It has ripped California cotton, tilled Florida vegetables, worked Montana wheat, and pulled a $500,000 excavator out of clay that 3 recovery crews could not move. It is the world's largest farm tractor. More than that, it is proof that a machine built with genuine margins, designed to be tested, does not become obsolete. It becomes indispensable. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve the history of these machines and the people who ran them. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and whether you have ever seen a Big Bud working in the field.